The House will be in order. The Chair would ask all present to rise for the purpose of a moment of silence. The Chair asks that the House now observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. The House will be in order. The House will come to order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committees on Armed Services, Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, the Judiciary, Oversight and Government Reform, and Transportation and Infrastructure, and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence be discharged from further consideration of House Resolution 391 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 391. Resolution expressing the sense of the House of Representatives regarding the terrorist attacks launched against the United States on September 11, 2001, on the 10th anniversary of that date.
Is there objection to consideration of the resolution? Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 1C of Rule 19, further consideration of H.R. 1892 will now resume. The clerk will report the title.
H.R. 1892, a bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2012 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes.
Is a separate vote demanded on any amendment to the amendment reported from the Committee of the Whole? If not, the question is on adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The question is on the engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2012 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes.
Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York rise?
I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
Is the gentlewoman opposed to the bill?
I am opposed to the bill in its current form.
The gentlewoman qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Ms. Hochul of New York moves to recommit the bill, H.R. 1892, to the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendment. At the end of Title III, page 26, after line 6, add the following new section. Section 312. Prioritization of funding to counter the threat posed by transnational drug trafficking. in obligating and expending funds authorized to be appropriated in this Act, the head of each element of the intelligence community shall include as a priority activities in support of countering the threat posed by transnational drug trafficking and the protection of United States borders from drug-related crime, violence, and gang-related activity in connection with transnational drug trafficking.
The House will be in order. The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment will very simply help the intelligence community prioritize its funding and ensure that we direct it towards securing our borders.
The House is not in order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. Gentlelady may resume.
As I said, my amendment will ensure that the priorities used by the intelligence community in distributing its funding ensures that we protect our borders from many threats, terrorists as well as drug dealers. I seek order, Mr. Chairman.
The gentlewoman is correct. The House is not in order. The House will be in order.
I want to reaffirm that support for my amendment, people can vote for my amendment.
Gentleman is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The gentleman may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be clear that support for my simple amendment, which is a statement of our priorities, we want to ensure that our intelligence community cooperates fully to protect our borders against terrorists as well as the scourge of drug dealers. If support for my amendment is passed, we can also vote on the underlying bill immediately following. So my amendment does not harm the bill, and I want to make that very clear. But last night, as we sat in this chamber, we all became aware of the continued threat that we all face as intelligence reports were coming out about unspecified threats of New York City and in Washington, perhaps putting us in danger. And while the President so eloquently laid out his comments on how we need to get our country back to work and people off the unemployment lines, I will tell you today there is a group of individuals I'd like to see on the unemployment lines, and those are the terrorists and the drug dealers who are trying to do harm to this country. So my amendment is simply a statement of our priorities. Just 2 days ago in my district in upstate New York, we had the largest drug bust come over from Canada in our history. It equated to 9 million doses of cocaine that was going to be spread through our community. Mr. Chairman, that is intolerable. We've got to do more to secure our borders, and we can work harder with our intelligence community and their resources to secure our borders, and that's exactly what my amendment would do. Not just the northern border. We all know it's occurring on the southern border. Military operations are being conducted in our country by Mexican drug cartels even as we speak. We have to do more to protect our borders. The murder capital of the world is not in some far eastern country, Middle East. It is miles away from the U.S. border near El Paso, Texas. I have a real problem with that as an American citizen. We need to do more to protect our borders. And as the President spoke last night, we have to do so much more to get our economy going again. Has anyone ever calculated the true costs to our economy of what the drug problem is doing, this illegal drug trafficking that's coming through our borders, what it's doing to our communities on the southern border and on the northern borders? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to do much more. And my amendment is simply an opportunity. If you support this, it is a statement of saying the intelligence community will make a higher priority of protecting our borders from the drug dealers and terrorists who want to do us harm. So, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time. I think this is a simple amendment. Again, support for this will not hurt the underlying bill. We can vote on this amendment and immediately support the bill following. Thank you very much.
The gentlewoman yields back.
I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise?
I rise in opposition, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
This goes, I think, to the heart, the fundamental heart of why some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and I think their intentions are good, but fundamentally do not understand the role and function of the intelligence community to protect the United States of America. Just as the gentlelady reported, that the newspaper reported a very credible threat to the security of the United States and to the violence of the citizens in maybe 2 prominent cities here on our homeland. So every day somebody gets up around the world with the sole intention of killing innocent Americans in this country through an act of terrorism. In addition to that, people are trying to penetrate our cyber networks all over this country, not only for intellectual property, but to cause harm and damage. We have nuclear treaties and nuclear proliferation that we ask and push and nudge our intelligence services to be on top of it and not to make a mistake. Don't make a mistake that would result in a catastrophic event anywhere in the world, let alone here in the United States of America. And I know some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't want to deal with the hard issues of the border. But taking it from an open, aggressive, build a fence, put more resources on the border, getting serious about policing our southern border, to take it into the classified, nobody can see it, see aren't we doing something, is the wrong thing to do for this country. We need to stand up for these men and women who we ask every day to protect this country. When you try to divert resources to gang violence from our intelligence services, that sends a very clear signal to America: you don't get it. I want terrorists caught. I want a great raid on somebody like Osama bin Laden. I want all of the resources of the intelligence community geared to keeping us safe. We have a border patrol. We have National Guard. We have lots of other ways to secure our border. Let's not waste the resources. Let's not slap in the face to every member of our intelligence community who is risking their life today to get a piece of information, to take an action that keeps us safe here in the homeland. I strongly urge the rejection of this misguided amendment.
The gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a record. No, not yet.
1 second. Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of passage. This is a 5-minute vote. 15? Okay. They'll know.
This is the Democratic motion to recommit, a final chance, last chance to change the bill. The bill is the Intelligence Authorization Bill for fiscal year 2012. Politico reported yesterday that the White House is threatening a veto of the House's version of the bill over several provisions, including language that would force disclosure to Congress of information on Guantanamo detainees, and that would make the head of the National Security Agency subject to confirmation by the Senate. So a 15-minute vote on motion to recommit. Final passage is next. That'll be a 5-minute vote. In other House legislative news, the Associated Press is reporting this morning that House Republicans are tacking on a 5% cut in the Federal Aviation Administration's budget to a bill necessary to prevent another shutdown of the agency. They write that Representative John Mica of Florida, the chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, plans to introduce the bill today. It would extend the FAA's operating authority through the end of the year. The FAA's current operating authority expires on September 16th, a week from today, giving the House and Senate just 1 week to resolve any differences on an extension bill. That from the Associated Press. Again, a 15-minute vote on the motion to recommit. Final passage is next. A short while ago, Nancy Pelosi spoke to reporters, her weekly briefing, in a follow-up to the President's speech on jobs last night. We'll show you as much as we can while this vote continues.
How are you? Things are moving along quickly on the floor, so we'll move along quickly here as well. I guess the quickest way for me to give you my reaction to the President's speech is to say that last night after his speech, I went home and I was flipping between the NFL game, the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints, and the U.S. Open. And they both reminded me that the President's speech, I think, was definitely a touchdown, an ace serve, spirit of the season, a home run out of the park, 10 strike if you bowl, any sports analogy you want to come up with, I think he achieved. When the President began his speech, he talked about the fact that he said people are asking, the press is asking, actually, I think he referenced all of you, what does the speech mean to the President? What does the speech mean to the Congress? After listening to the speech, it was clear that what was important is what the speech means to the American people. I think it was a speech about hope and confidence, about doing what is doable, initiatives that echo some of what we said earlier this week when we came before you about the ABCs, getting back to basics, make it in America, build America, do so in a way that respects the public role of public education and public safety. We were very pleased with that, but it also did so in the context of initiatives that have enjoyed bipartisan support on a regular and ongoing basis, and recent as well basis. So it was, I thought, a doable initiative. And his appeal to pass the American Jobs Act now is one that I think we must respond to. And for that reason, as you may know, I had written already to my ranking members asking them to ask their chairman for hearings on the President's proposals. Also, I've written to Speaker Boehner asking him to initiate those hearings on the legislation. You have it, you should have it, but it calls, if I've asked the ranking members, if it would be a sign of our unified commitment to acting quickly and acting in a bipartisan way, if you would similarly urge your chairman to move expeditiously to pass the legislation, then begin creating jobs and assisting businesses. And, of course, the hearings would be a first step in that. One other point I want to make is that this proposal comes at a time when it should, again, enhance the possibilities for the table of 12. I don't know how they have been characterized, but you know who I mean, and the actions they take. Some have said it will increase their challenge. Well, if it increases their challenge to create jobs, all the better. This should be the centerpiece. How do we create jobs, grow the economy, and do so, and how do we use the tax code and the timing of cuts or investments, again, to create jobs. I have called upon that table of 12 to act in a way that favors the entrepreneurial spirit of America and the role that small businesses play in creating jobs. And I was particularly happy that that was part of the emphasis of that the President, recognizing that small businesses are the job creators, and reducing the disparity in ownership in our country and equity is very important, I think, to making sure that many more Americans participate in the prosperity. And now, the response that we have received is overwhelmingly favorable. Some of the reports, I mean, Mark Zandi, as you know, former economic advisor to John McCain, has said this will create in 2012 1.9 million jobs, around 150,000 jobs a month, that it will increase the rate of GDP growth by 2%, taking us to around 4.5% for 2012. That would be absolutely great, and that it would reduce the unemployment rate from wherever it is, 9+ to 8%. So again, whether it's in terms of objective analysis or initiatives we've all been fighting for, or the bipartisan nature of the President's appeal, I think it was a home run, out of the park, touchdown, ace serve, what else? 10 strike. And again, this all happens at a time when our country is feeling, again, the memory and sadness of 9/11, at a time when many communities are affected by natural disasters, whether it's forest fires in the West or floods in the East and in the Gulf Coast area. And so it makes it's a somber time for us in terms of the human toll that all of that has taken and is taking. I myself will be leaving as soon as we make these votes to go to California for our ceremony that we will have tomorrow morning in San Francisco, and then get on the plane and go to New York for the 9/11 ceremony observance there. Members and leadership will be observing 9/11 all over the country. But again, it is a very sad time for our country, but one that speaks to our sense of community and our sense of strength as to how we go forward to honor our first commitment to the American people to keep them safe. With that, I'd be pleased to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask you about this terror threat that has been reported, and see what you thought, not just only of the threat, but do you believe that the government's prepared to handle any sort of an attack this weekend? If anything did slip through the cracks, do you think that we're prepared to handle this response?
Well, let me say that even before hearing about the threat and being briefed about it, I think everybody thought there was a possibility with the significance of the 10-year anniversary. So I think there was a heightened alert anyway of asking people to be aware of their surroundings and report any strange behavior, and of course at the sites of observances of 9/11. So I don't know how much it has changed things. I saw the report of the Mayor Bloomberg, the Mayor of New York, last night late when he was reporting what the City of New York was doing. But I don't know that I would have thought that everyone was pretty much in high gear in terms of what the possibilities were for this.
Have you been briefed on it?
Yes, I have.
And what's your understanding of how real this specific?
Well, you know, I really can't speak to that. But, you know, again, it's the 10-year anniversary of 9/11.
Madam Leader, the Republicans say that the way to create jobs is to sort of roll back federal regulations.
Yeah.
I'd like you to respond to that. And secondly, on Social Security, advocates for the program say the payroll tax cut would damage the sort of structural integrity of the program.
Yeah.
If you could respond to that as well.
Well, because we have votes, I'm glad your colleagues have allowed you 2 questions. And I will take them quickly. First of all, in terms of the Social Security, I think we've pretty much gotten to a place where there's general acceptance that that's going to be part of the initiative. So I don't know. There may be some, I mean, let's put it this way. It doesn't mean that every piece of everything the President said that everybody was saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad about that. But this is, again, a compromise. And the President feels very committed to it. And I think what was important about his speech last night was that not only what he said, but how he said it, and that he's taking it to the American people. And he believes that this initiative has an integrity to it, a oneness. He introduced it as one bill. One bill. So it, again, it fits comfortably in what he is proposing. Again, you've heard what I've heard leading up to this, but I think that there's a comfort level as to what it would achieve. Tell me the second question again.
The regulatory agenda.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we should have any regulations that we shouldn't have, but there are plenty that we should have, and the President said it very, very well we should subject any of those regulations to review as to if they are accomplishing the purpose they set out to do or if they're just a hindrance to businesses growing and jobs being created. But when you're in an arena right now where one of the goals of some on the extreme right in the country want to do away with all regulation, clean air, clean water, food safety, and the rest, the President was very clear that he will protect the American people in that regard. But again, what is the purpose of it? The President has his own review, has made significant recommendations about reducing regulations where they're duplicative, obsolete, or just really are not fulfilling their purpose.
Yes, ma'am. Confidence at this point that Republicans are a bit more conciliatory and ready to work with you on a number of these issues, or do you think you expect some of the same old partisan arrangement?
Well, I hope not. I think that the President's appeal last night was on the basis of proven initiatives, proven, that is to say, to have had strong bipartisan support, Republican support in the near and in the historic past. So he didn't reach for things that were divisive. He had a values-based speech which was unifying, and proposals that had enjoyed bipartisan support. The Speaker has said, and I have his words in the letter that I sent to him, that it merited consideration. Was his remarks that I said I was encouraged by your statement that the proposal the President outlined tonight merits consideration, and hope that we can work together to create a better environment for long-term economic growth and private sector job creation. I'm encouraged by that remark by Speaker Boehner, and again, others in the Republican leadership and in their conference have spoken in favor of some of the initiatives, including the payroll tax holiday.
Madam Leader, how realistic is it to get a bill of this size through the House and the Senate and then by the government in what amounts to a little over 40 legislators?
Well, it may be part of what the Table of 12 recommends, but I would hope that we could get some of it passed sooner than that. I thought some of it again hasn't been controversial. The issues are well known. If we start right away, as we have asked, for hearings on some of the specifics in the bill as they go out to different committees of jurisdiction, I think that we can advance it. The American people can't wait very much longer for some relief. A proposal has been put forth. Pass it, change it, make your own suggestions, adding to it, but let's act upon it. So in any event, I think that a great deal of it can be done in the 98 days, almost 40 legislative days that we have before the big committee has to act, and another month after that Congress can continue to act. Yes, ma'am.
Is there concern that in this large bill and with the limited time, are Democrats concerned that the Republicans are just going to pick off the tax cuts and not go for the other provisions that the President proposed last night, some of the things that your caucus has called for?
Well, we're about job creation. So I think the most encouraging thing that I heard last night was that the President was taking this to the public so that they understood the values upon which his proposals were based, the suggestions were bipartisan in their nature and their history, and that he's going out there. What we have heard during the break in our regular, House members are always home putting their hand on that very hot stove listening, and what the President said last night responds and actually takes the lead on many of the concerns that the American people have. So I think it's about
are 145, the nays are 257. The motion is not adopted. The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it.
Your ayes for a recorded vote.
Gentleman from Maryland asks for a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And this is likely to be the last recorded vote of the day, of the week, vote on the Intelligence Authorization Bill for fiscal year 2012. And that ought to wrap it up for the House for today. The Senate, meanwhile, is in today. General speeches mainly and a number of tributes to September 11th. The 10th anniversary is Sunday, of course. Lots of programming planned for you and coverage here on C-SPAN and the C-SPAN networks. You can check our website for that. And, of course, remember our series, The Contenders. Debuts tonight with Henry Clay, who served here in the House as Speaker of the House, served for many years in the early 1800s and ran for president 3 times. We will be live tonight from Ashland, Kentucky at 8 o'clock Eastern for The Contenders. You can find out more about that series on our website as well, cspan.org/thecontenders.
On this vote, the yeas are 384 and the nays are 14. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
I do, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent that in the engrossment of the bill H.R. 1892, the clerk be authorized to make such technical and conforming changes as necessary to reflect the actions of the House.
Without objection, so ordered. The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives. Sir, pursuant to the permission granted in Clause 2H of Rule 2 of the Rules of the U.S. House of Representatives, the clerk received the following message from the Secretary of the Senate on September 8, 2011, at 6:20 p.m., that the Senate passed without amendment H.R. 1249. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Haas.
The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives. Sir, pursuant to the permission granted in Clause 2H of Rule 2 of the Rules of the U.S. House of Representatives, the clerk received the following message from the Secretary of the Senate on September 9, 2011, at 9:04 a.m., that the Senate agreed to, without amendment, House Concurrent Resolution 67, that the Senate agreed to Senate Concurrent Resolution 28. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Haas.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
What are you trying to do? Speaker, I rise to ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for 1 minute for the purposes of inquiring of the Majority Leader, the gentleman from Virginia, the schedule for the week to come.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield to my friend, the Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor from Virginia.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Maryland, my friend, the Democratic whip, for yielding. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the House will meet at noon for morning hour and 2 p.m.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order. I can't hear the gentleman.
House will come to order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, the House will meet at noon for morning hour and 2 p.m. for legislative business, with votes postponed until 6:30 p.m. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the House will meet at 10 a.m. for morning hour and noon for legislative business. On Thursday, the House will meet at 9 a.m. for legislative business. Last votes of the week are expected no later than 3 p.m. on Thursday. On Friday, no votes are expected in the House. The House will consider a few bills under suspension of the rules on Monday. A complete list of suspension bills will be announced by the close of business this afternoon. As for the remainder of the week, we have a number of items to consider. We will complete action on H.R. 2218, the Empowering Parents Through Quality Charter Schools Act. We expect to consider an additional FAA extension. We will vote on a resolution of disapproval relating to the President's debt limit increase request. And we will consider H.R. 2587, the Protecting Jobs from Government Interference Act, the first bill in our fall agenda, Mr. Speaker, relating to job creation. I thank the gentleman from Maryland. I yield back my time.
I thank the gentleman for the information he's given to us. Can I inquire, as the gentleman knows, when we left for the August break, there was a very substantial issue with respect to the FAA. Does the gentleman know whether there will be any policy writers on the FAA bill that comes to the floor? I know there's a reduction in authorized levels, but are there any policy writers in that bridge bill?
I'd say, Mr. Speaker, I'd say to the gentleman that we are still in discussions with the other body on the other side of the Capitol, as well as the committee, on exactly the construct of that bill, but do intend to bring that forward next week.
I thank the gentleman for that information. I certainly hope that we can do so and I'm pleased to hear that we're having discussions so that that will not be a matter of contention. As you know, we had 4,000 FAA employees and about 71,000 or so contractor private sector employees who were laid off for a period of time because of the failure to get agreement with the rider that was included in the bill that we passed over to them. So I'm hopeful that we don't have a recurrence of that situation, because it would be very harmful not just to those 75,000 people, but to the FAA and the generally. So I'm hopeful that we can work that out. The President, Mr. Leader, spoke to us last night about a jobs program. I know that you have made comments with reference to shifting focus from cuts to jobs. We think that's appropriate. We appreciate that observation. But do you have any idea of how soon we may get to the President's proposal on job creation and trying to get our economy growing again? You made some, I think, positive comments. The speakers made some positive comments. I think those are welcomed. But can you give me some idea, given the President's sense of urgency and I think the sense of the American people of the urgency of trying to create jobs and to give them some more resources with which to support themselves and their families and to invest and to comprehensively try to staunch the loss of teachers and police and fire personnel that each one of our communities is experiencing. And I yield to my friend.
Thank the gentleman. And Mr. Speaker, I'd respond by saying, first of all, the President has not sent up text of his bill, and we will be awaiting that. I would also like to respond by saying that the President came last night, and there were several things and proposals within his speech that seem to reflect some areas that we can both agree on and build towards consensus. I would say to the gentleman that insisting that this body and the two sides here agree on everything is not a reasonable expectation, but that I feel, and have said so many times since the President's speech, that this is an opportunity for us to set aside the differences that we have, because good people can differ, and begin to focus on things like allowing for tax relief for small businesses, like allowing for the rollback of regulatory impediments that stand in the way of small business growth. And as the gentleman knows, we've put forward a fall agenda that is squarely focused on those two goals: rolling back regulations that are proposals that are standing in the way of middle-class job creation, and affording tax relief for small businesses to create an environment for middle-class jobs. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I would hope that we could also have hearings. I understand the gentleman's correct that the text has not been sent up. I expect that to happen in the very near future, probably, I would hope, before we get back on Monday night. But I would hope that we could start hearings on all segments of that and see that on which we could get agreement. Certainly investing in our infrastructure, investing in our schools and our highways, critically important, we believe. And I think that will not only create jobs, but it will create jobs that will have a meaningful positive impact on our infrastructure and our economic competitiveness. The President mentioned about making it in America. As you know, we have a Make It in America agenda, which includes a large number of items, including a manufacturing strategy the President mentioned, and we all, that was one of the few times we all stood very enthusiastic when he mentioned whether it was making cars or refrigerators or other goods here in America, that having made in America goods was something that I think we all support. So that's part of his agenda as well, and certainly our agenda, and I hope our agenda writ large on a bipartisan basis. If I might ask you, on the front page of the Washington Post today, as you probably saw is a picture of my district in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, where great flooding as a result of the rains that we've received in Irene. And the supplemental for the FEMA is coming hopefully from the Senate relatively soon. I would ask the gentleman, as you know, there are $484 million remains in FEMA's disaster relief fund. Clearly not enough to meet the disasters. In the aftermath of 9/11, as the gentleman knows, we appropriated such funds as were necessary, and we did so without paying for them because, in fact, they were real emergencies, real pain, real displacement, real dislocation, real costs immediately incurred by people as a result of the disaster. In that case, in the terrorist act, but in this case, the disaster. Can the gentleman tell me whether or not we will be able to pass in a relatively accelerated fashion sufficient resources for FEMA without getting into arguments about how in the short term we'll pay for them? We have to pay for things in the long term. I'm for that. But I would ask the gentleman whether or not he would anticipate getting that supplemental done as early as possible, and hopefully a clean supplemental next week, if that is at all possible, because we need to respond to the emergencies that confront us. And I yield to my friend.
Well, first of all, I'd say to the gentleman, he knows as well my district was the epicenter of the earthquake and damage there for that, as well as extremely hard hit by the high winds associated with Irene, and had almost 900,000 people out of power, still some people out of power. So I understand the situation that people are suffering, and we need to get them their relief. The gentleman knows that I share his commitment to making sure that happens. I also applaud the gentleman for saying that yes, because he has always been, Mr. Speaker, someone who says we have to pay for what we do here. And I don't think that the two are mutually exclusive. I don't and have never said we should be holding up any relief at all for people who need it. I also think we can work together to act responsibly. The gentleman has been an advocate always for paying for what we do. And so I would say, as to the request as to where and when we were doing the supplemental, we still have not heard from the administration because, as the gentleman knows, there's a process that goes on at the local and state levels to make a determination about the need and to make a determination that the need exceeds the capacities of the local and state governments, so as to then turn to FEMA and the federal government to come in. So I say to the gentleman, we need to understand exactly what the costs are going to be, and we will make sure that we find the monies. I will also say that we continue to try and get out of the sort of ad hoc way of appropriating for such emergencies. The fact is, in the past, that we in this Congress have not adequately funded the disaster accounts and have found ourselves caught short-handed when disaster hits. And as the gentleman knows, part of the debt ceiling agreement included a 10-year rolling average to now be the amount for which we will budget for the disaster fund. And hopefully that will get us on a much more even keel and allow for the adequate funding of what's needed, both in the short term and long. But as for the supplemental, I'm still waiting for the administration's determination of what is needed. And if it is FY012 monies, we will have the opportunity to roll that into the process of budgeting for the disasters the way we set out to do that in the debt ceiling agreement. And I yield back.
I appreciate the gentleman's observation and also his reference to the headroom that we gave in the agreement that was reached in raising the debt ceiling on understanding that there are emergencies that occur and you need headroom to deal with those emergencies, and I'm appreciative of the gentleman's observation. I understand as well, I want to acknowledge that his district was hard hit, not only by the earthquake, but by Irene and I presume by the rains as well that have compounded that issue. But in any event, I appreciate his willingness to ensure that we do, in fact, get a supplemental that will meet the needs, the immediate needs of those people throughout certainly the Atlantic coast, but in other parts of the country as well. And I appreciate and will look forward to working with him on that objective, as I will look forward to working with him on realizing the early passage of a jobs bill which will, in fact, get Americans back to work and get our economy growing as is essential. Unless he has anything further to say, I'll yield back the balance of my time. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet on Monday next, when it shall convene at noon for a morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business.
Without objection, so ordered. The chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon seek recognition?
1 minute.
Permission granted, without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I voted against the Intelligence Reauthorization Act reluctantly. On the eve of the 10th anniversary of 9/11, there's still nothing more important than the security of our people. But I am troubled by a clear lack of progress in getting our arms around the sprawling intelligence bureaucracy. There are 856,000 people with top security clearance in the United States. Think about it. That's nearly the population of the entire state of Delaware. It's more than the number of people who live in San Francisco. In over 10,000 locations scattered across the country, there are 1,200 government organizations, 1,900 private companies that focus on intelligence gathering and homeland security. But unfortunately, we have an inability for anybody to know exactly what is going on. And the flood of information that is generated by hundreds of thousands of people with opportunities for leaks and mistake is troubling. It can be a source of vulnerability. After all, parts of the bureaucracy were well aware of the threat from Osama bin Laden immediately prior to 9/11. It's time for us to give this the scrutiny it deserves.
Any other 1 minute? For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas rise? Without objection, permission granted.
Today we introduced a resolution to honor those whose lives were lost on 9/11. As a member of Congress, I vividly remember as we rushed from this building and glared at the Pentagon and saw the remains of the plane that had attacked this nation. From Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C. to New York, our lives were changed as America watched. Today, as I stand on this floor, I offer my deepest remorse and sympathy to the families who still are in pain, to the first responders whose memories are still glaring in their attempt to find those who were lost and to save what might be left, and the pain they have and the health conditions they suffer. But what I will say to America, that we are still America, strong, patriotic, and believing in all that we are, the great diversity that we are. Thank you to the Muslims who are on the Capitol right now, providing the gift of life, giving blood. Thank you to the city of Houston that will be honoring those this coming weekend. We will be together because we are America. We will not be deterred. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise?
To address the House for 1 minute and to advise and extend my remarks, I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 10 years after the horrific events of 9/11, Americans are still at risk, especially at risk of being poisoned by terrorists who would choose to dump large amounts of chemicals into our drinking water supply. So in order to protect the safety of our people, especially Metro Detroiters who drink water from a large municipal water system, today I'm introducing legislation to better secure our municipal water systems all around this country from such a terrorist threat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Are there any other requests for 1-minute remarks? The chair lays before the House the following personal request.
Leave of absence requested for Mr. Barletta of Pennsylvania for Thursday, September 8th, and for today.
Without objection, the request is granted. Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011. The gentleman from Nevada, Mr. Heck, is recognized for 30 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all have our own stories, personal stories, on how 9/11 affected us, where we were, what we were doing. For my generation, I'm sure the day will go down in history as our day of infamy. My perspective is as a first responder on that day and someone who grew up in New York. I was working for the Department of Defense at the time, leading a counterterrorism medical response organization. And my partner, paramedic Jason Koepp, was actually conducting some training with the U.S. Park Police over at their aviation facility in Anacostia when they saw a low-flying plane and then heard the loud explosion. Jason quickly jumped on a U.S. Park Police helicopter and was one of the first responders to arrive at the Pentagon and provide aid. I was traveling in St. Louis when I turned on the TV that morning and saw the first tower in flames and was watching as the second tower was struck by another aircraft. I knew that I needed to get back to my office in Bethesda as quickly as possible.